All right, welcome back. Oh my gosh, to Stat 3050 at the University of Wyoming, online and having just a great old time. Oh boy. Okay, so we have been leading up to doing some proper statistics now for a while. We've been learning how to code in R, kind of getting the basics down and some more sort of involved things. And now we're going to get into probably the most classical type of statistical analysis. T-tests. I like to call them T-tools because there's more than just one test you can do, as I have got listed there. But essentially, just as a little refresher from Stat 2050, what a t-test does is just test if there is a difference between two groups, like a true difference, and not due to just random chance. Okay, and I'll give you a little example here in just a moment. But of course, you're probably wondering, hey, Carson, it's a new, it's a new section. That means there's new music, right? Oh yeah, you are correct. Here it is. Here's the album of the week, album of the section, whatever. Stranger in the Alps by Phoebe Bridgers. Good Lord. This, if you listen to it, you know what I'm talking about, but this is a sad album. In a good way, in the best way that sad songs can be. I think every song on here is really good. It's also, it's pretty real, I guess, at least for Phoebe. I would recommend doing this. Listen to Motion Sickness first, and then Scott Street, and then Funeral, and then listen to the whole thing. You'll have quite the time, I promise. Also, if you're not into sad music, then it's also musically interesting too. So it's not just 3 or 4 chords. It's pretty intense. Her other albums are really good too, but I think this one's kind of up there for me at least. Oh man. Okay. Before I can talk any more about this, let's just move on. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick little scenario here, just to kind of give you an idea of what these things do. Okay. That's sort of the history of this tool. So let's say that you are working at a farm. In this case, it just so happens to be a hop farm. And maybe you work at Guinness, or maybe just fill in the blank of your favorite beer company. Okay. Now, I'm going to say Guinness because it's going to come into play here in just a second. But let's say that you are given the opportunity to use a new type of fertilizer that's advertised as increasing your hop yield by, some large percent. Okay, maybe we'll just say that we actually can potentially double the amount of hops that we can produce. Okay, that's a pretty big claim, right? And you are, of course, smart and a little bit skeptical to that claim, and you do want to try out the new fertilizer and you want to see if it actually works. However, like most logical people, you would not want to sacrifice your entire farm here in using that fertilizer and maybe comparing the yield with the fertilizer to maybe last year's yield. Okay, that's not exactly the most economical because you would have to buy the fertilizer for the whole thing. It's also dangerous because it might not work. The claim might be kind of bogus. Okay, so the claim is that it works. At least that's their claim. Our claim is that, well, maybe, I don't think it will work. That's going to be my kind of basis there. And then any change that I see, I'll base it on my sort of null hypothesis, we'll say, just to use some kind of statistical language. Okay, so you don't want to sacrifice your whole field here. So what you do instead is you grab, let's say, just a small sample, maybe 2 small samples from your field. Okay, and you use one sample as your experimental group. So that's the group maybe that you use the fertilizer on, and then you compare it to a a very akin sample of about the same size and same types of hops. Okay, but you don't do anything to that one, and you're just making comparisons between the two. Okay, and then whatever difference you see is whatever it is, a difference that you did empirically see. However, is that difference going to apply to the whole thing? Is that effect of the fertilizer going to be true across your entire population of hops on your farm? Okay, that's kind of the dilemma. How are you going to test to see whether or not the sample, the inference you got from the sample can blow up to the population here. Well, it turns out that that was this guy's problem about 100 years ago, maybe even longer. Gosh, yeah, no, way longer. So this guy's name, his name is Wheel. Good Lord, I've either not had enough coffee or too much coffee. This guy's name is William Seeley Gossett. We'll just call him Old Billy for now. And that was exactly his problem. He was an experimental brewer at Guinness, and he was given that same thing. They were offered a new type of fertilizer, and he said, well, I don't want to sacrifice the whole crop to this idea. Let me just take a small sample and then compare it to another small sample without the fertilizer. And after some long, hard work and some math and some number crunching, he was able to develop a way to test the difference between two small samples and blow it up back to your population that you're working with, okay, that you're trying to make conclusions about, okay. And so this kind of came in, this kind of came about as t-tests and these t-distributions. He came up with a few other things as well, but these are his kind of two big contributions to early day statistics. Now, the bummer here is that he was able to develop these things. However, Guinness was like, you cannot publish any of your work, even though, it's a pretty big deal for math and statistics. And he said, okay, whatever. So he kind of kept tumbling away. And then eventually he said, hey, can I publish my stuff? And they said, sure, but you can't use your real name. You have to use this. You have to use a pseudonym. So he said, okay, I'll just use the name Student and I'll go from there. So he published everything under the name of Student, and that's how we get students t-tests and students distributions. So if you've seen it like that, that's kind of the history as to why. It's called a t-test because over there in the United Kingdom, their first favorite drink is beer, of course. Second favorite is tea. Okay, I made that up. I don't think that's actually true, but it would be super cool if it was true, right? Okay, so with that, I'm going to start a new video here and talk a little bit about the t distribution and kind of what we're doing. And then we will start up then. Okay, I will see you in the next one.